everybody, and welcome to the 10th, the final episode of the News Fest. For our final stories, we got 4, as usual, and we will all be telling you one. And so, let's get right ahead. Let's start off with our first story. So, Nikita, do you want to start us off?
Of course. Okay, so the first story is about tech, which is present all around us. So the internet revamp for the humble landline in the UK. So the technology that currently powers landline telephones is to be switched off in 2025. But don't panic, you'll still be able to have a handset in the hallway should you wish. The Public Switch Telephone Network, which is also known as the PSTN, is a modern version of the 19th century technology. It is what brings the connection into your home via an overhead copper cable, but its days are numbered according to the BBC, which has already begun work on the switchover. Landline operators in the UK will switch every home phone in the UK to an internet-based connection instead of traditional copper wire landlines. A total of 14 million lines are affected. Excuse me. So what's happening to the old landline network? PSTNs around the world have been modernized many times, but still work on the same principle, establishing direct connections between telephones via an intermediary exchange. Initially, PSTN copper cables also carried internet connections into people's homes, but this has increasingly been replaced by the fiber optic cable. Internet communications also mean landlines themselves have become less popular. And a survey conducted in April suggested that 40% of people in UK have even stopped using them altogether. Telecoms company also said the old PSTN equipment is costly to maintain and call quality should be improved by routing landline calls via internet connections instead. All landline phones will still work after the internet changes, however, and unless moving to a different part of the country, people will still retain the same phone number. But you may have to plug your phone into the internet router or a new wall socket. So when will it happen? The company that manages the UK's phone and internet network has already begun switching people over to VoIP connections, which is the internet connections. The company launched a trial in Suffolk earlier this year. New landline customers there can purchase VoIP connections only, and it's also planning hundreds of similar trials for exchanges in towns across the UK this year and the next year. So, will people need an internet connection to use their landline phone? So once the PSTN is completely switched off, if not before, you will be unable to make a phone call via a landline with no internet connection. You will be able to use your existing broadband connection for landline services. However, and if you have no broadband connection, you should, according to the telecoms regulator, be given the option to buy a simple connection for making calls only, rather than having to pay for the high-speed services. Now, there comes the question of reliability in using internet for calls. Many businesses have already had VoIP phone systems for some time, and after the digital TV switchover, some viewers noticed blockiness in their pictures. But voice calls require a relatively tiny amount of data, and modern internet connections should be able to handle them well. So, are traffic lights affected in this case? Besides landline phones, lots of systems currently rely on the PSTN, including home burglar alarms and security systems, public traffic lights, cash machines, railway signals, motorway signs, and they will all have to switch to fully digital alternatives. All of these services are dependent on the voltage supplied by the PSTN, and all will need local batteries in addition to an internet connection once the network closes, with some requiring more complex solutions. So, what do you guys think about this change in the technology of the UK for phones?
Well, honestly, I think in a way it was inevitable, in a sense that technology will continue to improve. It will continue no matter what. But however, me as a person, I am still skeptical about this change, just to Wi-Fi, because we've all experienced slow Wi-Fi. We've all experienced complete Wi-Fi outages. I'm just worried in how that will affect it. Like having the copper landlines to me was a more sure option in a way. However, I can see that as technology advances and as we continue to grow as populations and technologically wise, technical, you know what I mean. I see that this will become like a more like a sure way to do it, and I'm not against it. I would be willing to try it. I wouldn't have anything against trying it.
Yeah, like I'm kind of amazed like how technology have like, enhanced right now, but I'm also concerned about, because Wi-Fi is like spreading all over the air, right? Like in the airspace. And there's like lots of reports that Wi-Fi actually causes some like negative impacts to your brain, like your health, and making everything to Wi-Fi will probably make that more, serious problem. So I'm kind of concerned about that, but like Anel said, it's kind of an like inevitable thing to come on, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's also like I feel like our reliance on Wi-Fi is always increasing with time, especially as technology develops. But so I'm kind of worried that if something were to happen to that, what would happen to us? Because that would kind of stop a lot of stuff in the process, which could negatively influence the world, you know?
Yeah, like another point that I was thinking about was not everyone has access to Wi-Fi. Like, what about the poor people, or what about the people places that have no service? Like, I know a lot of places in UK that probably don't even have service, and where you can't even get like Wi-Fi. So what about those places? Like, how do they make calls? Because their calls were connected to the old cables, right? And if they switch off that, then how will they be able to make calls? So that's just something I was thinking about. Yeah, but
no, that's actually a good point, because I have a grandmother who lives in France and Brittany, and she doesn't have any Wi-Fi, and she doesn't see a point in it, so she won't buy it. And so she still relies on her landline, and like, what will happen if this is an inevitable change, Also, something I was kind of worried about was security. How safe is this Wi-Fi? How safe is this complete switch to Wi-Fi? Because I mean, we've all seen how good hackers have become. And I'm worried that by switching over everything to Wi-Fi, it will make all of our business, our personal business, easier to hack. Would someone be hypothetically able to listen to one of my phone calls if it's on Wi-Fi without me knowing? And that's got me kind of worried.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily to do with phone calls, but I remember seeing a few of these videos where you'd have like people use the Wi-Fi of certain places to hack into it and then access photos that people have taken. So that could be used in the same context as phone calls, as you said.
Exactly.
Which is actually
similarly, I've seen something like when you access public Wi-Fi's, people can therefore access your phone and then just take all your data, and that's it.
I think that's more serious problem, especially because now our phone and like laptops are another form of us, right? Because we have everything in our like in the technology that we use. So yeah, that's really concerning and worried about.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because like I talked about, reliability is a big issue with talking over the Wi-Fi, and especially not just for commoners but for businesses, like you said. Like, they really need that extra level of security that comes with like the cables. But I think that even with cables, like, it's so easy for people to listen in. Like, all you need to do is like connect the cables. I've seen this before, and I know it happens in India, where like, because the landlines are connected with the cables, people like spies, usually they can listen in to conversations like such, with like just being able to connect cables. So maybe the Wi-Fi could also be a better change in a way in that case, because it would become harder for ordinary people to listen in on conversations, and just the high level hackers who are able to hack to actually be able to hack it. Like, it's more like a which is better situation. And for me, I think I support the Wi-Fi, because it's more a little more secure. Maybe like you could add more security options in it, as like they probably have more data packages, and obviously the security one would probably cost more money with a lot of like levels of security that come with it. So we never know. But the only issue I see is that poor people wouldn't have access to those data packages, and or they would not even be able to access the internet, so they can't even make calls now if something important comes along.
Yeah, and adding to that, like some people, like elders, are not still used to using Wi-Fi, right? And that will make like hard for them to actually use like everything they were using like normally, right? And
It
it
would
will
have to be a
like
quick
cause.
shift.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, so that was really good.
Second story?
Yeah, so for the second story, I'll be talking about a Canadian being jailed for 11 years for spying charges in China. So Michael Peter Todd Spever is a Canadian consultant who has worked extensively in North Korea. He is a director of Pike 2 Cultural Exchange, which is an organization that promotes investment and tourism in North Korea. So the story actually first started in December 2018, where he was living and working in Dandong on the Chinese side of China-North Korean border. So Spiver was actually taken to custody by the Chinese officials, and his arrest is widely interpreted as retaliation for Canada's arrest of Huawei extensive Meng Wanzhou. I'm sorry, my pronunciations of the names aren't exactly on point. So actually on the 10th of August, 2021, so pretty recently, a Chinese court sentenced Spever to 11 years in prison. So this verdict will test a strained relationship between Canadian and Chinese governments, and critics have already started to accuse China of treating both Spever and Kovrig, a Canadian ex-diplomat, as well as Spaver's fellow citizen, as a political bargaining chips held as part of what is known as hostage diplomacy. So in a statement published on Wednesday, the Dandong courts said, for the crime of spying and illegal provisions of state secrets abroad, Spever has been sentenced to 11 years in jail, confiscation of 50,000 yuan, which is roughly $7,715 or 5,578 pounds worth of personal property and deportation. Sorry. This statement does not explicitly state when the deportation will take place, but China typically deports convicted foreigners only after they have completed their prison sentence. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that the conviction was absolutely unacceptable and unjust. The verdict for Spever comes after more than 2.5 years of arbitrary detention, a lack of transparency in the legal process, and a trial that does not specify even the minimum standards required by international law, he said in a statement. So what do you guys think of this?
Wow. So just a quick recap. So he was spying for North Korea?
Well, it's not entirely sure, but he's sentenced for spying. It doesn't exactly specify for what, but he did work extensively in North Korea as a tourism investment businessman.
But it's
I
more
think
like they
that-
assumed that he spied.
Yeah, but the thing I found really weird is that it actually happened in December 2018, so roughly 2 years ago, a bit less. No, a bit more than 2 years. Yeah, and like they're only starting to start his sentence today, or like now in August of 2021, more than 2 years later. So I find that the time difference is kind of awkward.
I mean, maybe they were trying to find out what he was spying on, because I mean, I think it would be very important to know what kind of information he was trying to spy on before finding out his sentence. And maybe that's what took so long, because I mean, I'm sure the information he was spying on was incredibly important, but there's a difference between spying on government information and then spying on like a company's information. That would have a very different impact. You would probably get a higher sentence spying on government information than spying on the company's information, although both are completely wrong and I don't condone either. So I think that the most important thing before debating if his sentence was just or not would be to know what he is sentenced for.
It didn't even specify. But the Canadian Prime Minister does say that apparently there's a lack of transparency in the legal process. So would that bring to question, well, the situation in general? Would the Chinese government just arrest someone based on assumptions, or do they have actual proof for the...
Well, there's just one thing that I was thinking about, and it's about there's this law between countries. I think the UN, I'm not sure, this is not a fact, I'm just saying I think the UN made it that, when an expat is arrested in a country that is not that he's not a citizen of, then in that country, the country does not have the right to keep that expat, and they have to deport him to the country he belongs to. So this guy, being Canadian and who's in China and is being held, he's being arrested in China, and they've given him a sentence of 11 years. But the thing is that I don't think that China, I think that China, the fact that you talked about the time difference, and that's very fishy and like, whoa. I think that, China is holding him in like, it's like holding him in the country because they want something to hold over Canada. So what they can do in the situation is like, it's just a guess that I think why they took him in that late and like why now. It's just because maybe they want something from Canada, and so in exchange for giving their citizen back to them, they can ask for something, or it's more like they owe something to them. So I feel like China just wants that power over people right now, and so they could have done this because of that need.
As I said earlier, actually, people have interpreted, or like the arrest of Spavor was interpreted as a retaliation against the Canadian arrest of the Huawei executive, which then leads to critics believing that both Spavor and his Kovrig are actually political bargaining chips, as you have said.
Exactly. Yeah. So
another reason that they could be keeping him so long is that they just want assurance that he won't go and just spread all the information that he found. Maybe they just want to find out what he found out and then make sure that he won't just go and just sell the information to other countries, maybe because it's sensitive information is another possible option.
That could be.
That's true. But still, I still find the difference between the years of 2018, so like December 2018 and August 2021.
That really makes me think of like China making the businessman as the hostage diplomacy thingy, like you said before. Like they actually want from like Nikita said, like China wants something from Canada, and that's why they're holding him right now. That's what I think.
Like I was just thinking on what Anna said before, and how it could be that they just want to know what he knows, and that totally could be true. But looking at the timing, it's very unlikely that, at least for me, what I think, like when I think about it, I don't see why they would have to take him in now after they see that their expat, like their citizen, got held in Canada. So why now? Like if they had to, they could have done before. Like I'm sure it doesn't take 1.5 years for them to get to know like if the citizen has done it or not, or like if they know information, and you could have spread that information in like that 1.5 year, like all over the world, right? So I don't see why now. And like even if they want to hold him, why 11 years? why 11? Like they could
Mm.
take him in for questioning and hold him, right? Like I don't see
Yeah.
why they need to put him in like, is it jail? Is it jail?
Yeah. They're
Why-
sentencing him to 11 years in jail.
Yeah. So why jail or why prison? So why like
Yeah.
11 years? That's just what I'm thinking.
Because it was spying. Because he was spying.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
do they
It's
have
illegal.
concrete evidence for it? Like, because if they had concrete evidence, then why not 1.5 years ago that they put him in jail? Like, it was.
Yeah, I think it's because they didn't have the concrete evidence when they first got him, and maybe he was arrested on suspicions, and then they were like, "I want the concrete evidence," and the concrete evidence came to light recently, and then they were like, "Boom, 11 years."
Could be.
Yeah, but then you won't arrest someone for a full 2 years just because you're suspicious of them.
Maybe
That's a
maybe
bit long.
maybe they had an inside source
Maybe.
telling them this guy's spying.
Usually, an expat is supposed to be returned to their country. Like, so if I'm held in jail, in some other country, I'm supposed to be returned to India because I'm a citizen. I'm an Indian citizen. So that's how it usually works because that's how it should be done, right? But the fact that they're keeping him there means that they want something. So that's just what makes me like kind of think and like question.
Yeah.
I think this has a lot like deeper political roots that we don't necessarily understand because we're not that involved. Like we're not the government. We don't know what goes on underneath. I think this has more. I think this is deeper. I think this goes deeper than just the surface of we want the information.
This is just the information the public has. Obviously, the public normally doesn't get all the information to this sort of stuff.
Limited.
So it's really limited. So it's just kind of making our own assumptions.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the third story.
My story. Yippee. Right. So let's start. So wildfires, heat waves, may become the new normal as the UN releases a damning climate report. Amid a summer of record heat waves, raging wildfires, and flooding, the reality of a changing climate has become more imminent. Scientists hope that the release of a landmark UN climate report on Monday will serve as a wake-up call with the findings warning of hotter temperatures, more frequent and severe weather, and in some cases, irreversible climate damage. One of the many findings of the report by the UN's Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, or the IPCC, confirmed that the past 6 years were the hottest on record. Moreover, that major climate changes, such as rising sea levels, are inevitable and irreversible. The release of part 1 of the IPCC's largest ever report on the state of the world's climate comes amid months of deadly wildfires, record high temperatures, and floods with southern Europe, Turkey, the US, Canada, China, as well as Greece, all hit by extreme weather. The other 2 parts of the reports are due next year. Wildfires continue to blaze uncontrolled in Greece and Northern California. Fires in Greece have threatened ancient sites, annihilated forests, razed homes, and even forced the closure of sites like the Acropolis at the peak of the country's tourist season. In the densely populated capital of Athens, the heat, combined with the smoke-laden skies and the raining ash, have kept people indoors for days. The fires emerged from worst heat wave Greece The fires emerged from the worst heat wave Greece has experienced in more than 30 years. One fire official told a local newspaper that the heat was so intense that water from the firemen's hoses and aircraft was evaporating before it was even reaching the flames, AFP reported. Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said the fires in Greece are unmistakably linked to the reality of climate change. Rains brought respite in neighboring Turkey over the weekend in what President Recep Tayyip Erdogan described as the worst wildfires in the country's history. The barreling fires have scorched thousands and thousands of hectares of farmland and pristine forest in several countries this summer alone. Wildfire weather is expected to become more frequent and strike more regions, even where extreme heat and fires have been less common, according to the IPCC report, and will only get worse as the planet warms. Dr. Sharon George, a lecturer on environment and sustainability at the University of Kiel, told France 24 that scientists have been warned for years that the frequency of fires, floods, and droughts and the severity of storms will only get worse. But until recently, she said people had struggled to make the connection between this invisible gas, the CO2, and events like wildfires, floods happening around the world. They're happening in places we don't expect, she said, referring to Europe's extreme weather. And it's making people start to notice that the frequency of these events and say, this is what climate change looks like. The weather events of the summer of 2021 show that the impacts of climate change are no longer subtle. Michael Mann, professor of atmospheric science at Pennsylvania State University, told The Guardian. We see playing out in real time in the form of these unprecedented extreme weather disasters. Wildfires tore through towns in Italy and Spain in July, while across the Atlantic, extensive heat waves swept through parts of Canada and the US caused by a rare weather phenomenon called as a heat dome, known as a heat dome. The dome was responsible for extreme hot temperatures that sparked forest fires and placed millions of people under a heat alert. Officials recorded hundreds of sudden and unexpected deaths due to heat stress. In California, firefighters are still grappling on Monday with the second largest wildfire in the US state's history, dubbed the Dixie Blaze. It is the largest active wildfire in the US and only one of 11 major wildfires in California. The observations this summer show some impacts predicted in prior IPCC reports seem to be underestimated, but we can't know in the devastation of summer of 2021 is the new normal without a few more years of data, said Simon Lewis, professor of global change science at University College London, in an interview with The Guardian. The global shift towards a new normal of more fires, of increased ferocity, may have already begun in late 2019 and the beginning of 2020, when towering blazes laid waste to bushland, forests, and wildlife in Australia and Brazil. Around 3 billion animals are thought to have been killed or wounded during the fires in Australia. The widespread devastation caused by these fires turned many seasoned Australian firefighters and farmers who were once skeptical of the science behind climate change into advocates for climate action. Brazil had more than 222,000 wildfires last year, and the highest number since 2010, according to the Brazilian space agency INPE, with swaths of the Amazon rainforest affected. Preventing and keeping rampaging wildfires in check will require countries to meet a threshold set under the 2015 Paris Agreement to limit the rise in temperatures to 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial average. But such a target requires a drastic 50% cut in greenhouse gas emissions, and many scientists believe that the planet and its current rate of emissions is hurtling off course. We are on the opposite path from the Paris Agreement. We are headed towards a 3-degree increase, said Patricia Espinosa, Executive Secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, at its opening ceremony on July 26th. Europe's north would struggle with floods and fires, even with warming at the lowest end of the projected targets. In the south, urban heat waves, droughts, and agricultural decline are all forecast. Warming across the Mediterranean region is expected to be about 20% higher than global averages in the decades to come, as the region is hit with devastating heat waves, water shortages, and a loss of biodiversity, as well as risks of food production. The EU said in a report last year that extreme heat could kill 95,000 Europeans every year, which is more than 30 times the current average. Some leading experts on Monday were called for better scientific modeling to more accurately and reliably predict extreme weather events to help populations and governments be better prepared. The urgency of the situation understood in the IPCC report has scientists worried. We now need to live with the consequences of what we have already done to the climate. We are hopelessly unprepared to deal with increasing severe and extreme weather events, even though these have been predicted by science for decades, warned Richard Betts, a professor of climate impacts at Exeter University in an interview with The Guardian. But many hope that witnessing the disasters this summer will raise awareness among populations and politicians alike, leading to bolder decisions to counter the soaring temperatures. The test will come in November when leaders from 196 countries meet in Glasgow for the UN Climate Change Conference, COP26, with the goal of agreeing on further action to counter climate change. So what do you guys think?
So I think that climate crisis is really like the climate, like it's really important. And I know like near California, there was this fire, and the one you were talking about, obviously. And I was actually near about that fire, so we could even see the smoke come over. I think it was called the Nevada fire, if I'm not wrong. And so I know that a lot of people are being forced to evacuate from there, and even like the firefighters, like in US especially, they're fighting with like over 55 active fires, and the fact that we need to, I think it's called the river fire in Nevada, and so it's coming all the way over to California as well, and the smoke and everything, and the fact that I think it just kind of shows people that how important it is to take those like steps to become more environment friendly, and reduce climate reduce climate reduce
Climate impact.
yeah, reduce climate impact and like the carbon footsteps and everything, and how important it is to become how important it is to live with a better way of change your methods, change your daily life methods to become more environmental friendly, so you can avoid all these fires, because honestly these fires are benefiting no one. Like residents have to evacuate, people are being affected because of the smoke, and then like the fires, they also kill trees and like the stuff that's around them, and no one's being like it's not an advantage to anyone, right? So why don't people realize that quickly and just see that it's just gonna get worse, like it's not gonna get better, like you can make it better if you change, but it's not gonna get better just if you think, oh, okay, why me? Someone else can do it, right? Like, why does it have to be me? Like, why should I take the first step? It can be someone else, So I think that's not the mindset that you should have, or like that one person should have. I think these wildfires or this news should make them realize the extent to which they should change.
You're talking about mindsets and what people have towards recycling or like climate change in general. I'm also thinking one of the things people think is like, if I do this, what difference is it going to make? Because I mean, everyone has to do this, but they don't realize that eventually one person has to start, and it could potentially be them, and then they could spread it onto their friends, which then onto theirs, and slowly spreads over the country. So one person starting could really influence the pollution and overall impact that country has on climate change.
Yeah, like when I said I was gonna be a pescatarian to everybody, like people told me that it was because of many reasons, but one of the reasons was to secure the environment, because I knew that like the carbon dioxide that the cows produce, it actually has lots of negative impacts in our environment, right? And I was trying to, and I was in an attempt to reduce that, but people were saying like one person changes, it doesn't mean that you can actually prevent the climate change. And I was like, no, like this is the wrong mindset. And this kind of tells us that people still don't have like a full awareness of that, or like the climate change is a really like serious problem right now, and that everyone should be responsible of their actions. And like, I don't know who said it before, but like we should, but we're taking the consequences that people made in the past, and it's too late to change that, but it's not late to change our future. So I think people should be more responsible of what they're doing for our environmental problems that we're facing right now.
Like there's also people, but there's also people that they know what climate change is, they know that it's bad, but I don't think they understand the extent of how bad it is and how rapid the conditions of the world is actually deteriorating. Like we're having more and more cases of climate change, such as the wildfires and things. Those cases are slowly increasing in the same amount of time. So I think people are actually understanding that.
In a sense, I think that that the mindset that they have when they think, I'm one person, what change am I going to make? There is some, I hate to say it, but there is some sense in what they think, because it's not you as a person that has the greatest impact on climate change. In itself, it's all the industries that we have, the fast fashion industries, the meat industries, dairy, poultry, all that is in itself what has the biggest impact on the climate. But that's why people need to start, instead of thinking only of, they need to start thinking, what can I do as a person? And they also need to bring awareness and try to educate themselves on which industries are affecting the climate in the worst ways. And also, I think that these wildfires were, I think, I think in a way they were necessary, because now people are finally starting to see, it's being thrown in our face. Wildfires are happening everywhere, even in places we don't expect them to happen. They're happening everywhere. And it's because of climate change. And I think that this is so necessary, because people are finally going to start to realize, I can't avoid this anymore. I can't say anymore that it's just a coincidence, because it's happening too often to be a coincidence. You know what I'm saying?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just find it so ironic that that huge wildfire that happened in the Amazon didn't kick people and like didn't actually like make them realize that hey, I think I need to like retrace my retrace my steps and like go, oh well, where am I affecting the climate? Because a wildfire in the biggest rainforest ever, like Amazon rainforest, is like, wow, like if a wildfire even starts there, it's like never going to stop, right? Like it's just, and then even the whole thing that happened with the Australia wildfire, right? Like so many like kangaroos were killed and they were evacuating people, and like it was such a big thing. Like how do people still not realize, like you gotta change your life with, and like change to the better, change for the better, and like avoid these wildfires. So I know it's just kind of like, it's so ironic to me, but I think that even right now, like it's still not too late to change, and like they can still realize that.
Definitely. I think it's never too late to change, but I think that it is too late to have the world go back to what it was before. As I said, there have been some irreversible damages done to the environment that we're never going to get back. But I think that as you said, it's not too late to save what we have. It's not too late to fight for what we still have.
Yeah. So let's get to the next story, which also connects to climate crisis. Hannah, take over.
Okay, so the next story is about a death toll from 7.2 magnitude earthquake in Haiti rises to over 1,200 people. Okay, so the Haitian government declared a state of emergency after a 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck the country Saturday, leaving at least 1,297 people dead and more than 5,700 injured. Officials from the agency said that the quake destroyed 13,694 homes and damaged another 13,785. The destruction has also pushed hospitals to the brink and blocked roads that would carry vital supplies. According to the Prime Minister, when it comes to medical needs, this is their biggest urgency right now. The earthquake struck at 8:30 a.m., about 10 kilometers deep, with its epicenter about 12 kilometers northeast of St. Louis du Sud in the southwest part of the country. And they are starting to receive help from NGOs and from the government, but it's far from enough. they still desperately need X-ray films and etc. The hospital currently has 500 earthquake victims, many with broken feet and limbs, as well as head injuries. The earthquake is just the latest challenge for the struggling country, which is still dealing with fallout from the 2010 earthquake. In addition, Haiti is likely to experience high winds and heavy rain from Tropical Storm Grace on Monday into Tuesday, according to the CNN meteorologist. That rain could lead to flooding and mudslides, further complicating the recovery efforts. The entire coast of Haiti is under a tropical storm watch, meaning tropical storm conditions are possible within about 48 hours, according to the National Hurricane Center. So yeah, that's the end of the story. What do you guys think of it?
Well, I mean, I think, this country is in desperate need of like a lot of help, because not only is it one of the poorest countries like in the world, it's also struggling from a very corrupt government. So I've heard a lot of that countries are going to be sending over help. I'm not really sure, but I think that if they're not already planning to, people should be. Actually, I think I saw something about Naomi Osaka, who was I think she participated in the Olympics for tennis, women's tennis, who's willing to donate some of the prize money that she earned from her gold medal over to Haiti, to try and help, because it is a very struggling country in itself.
Yeah, so I think, it's kind of similar to what we talked about before. And well, I didn't know the Olympic thing. That's very new information to me. But the fact that I think right now what we need is for the countries to come together, and especially the UN, to decide like the steps that they should take forward. Like I know they have the um, like UN already has their goals up for this year, but I think they need to um, really put they need to like get countries to put strict regulations or laws that people need to follow. So it's just because it's for the better for everyone in the environment, and so I just feel like that's something that countries should, or that the UN should consider, because um, it's really important for countries to now be enforcing it. If people are not understanding on their own, I think the countries need to enforce it, or like maybe even like kind of push people to be push people to be um, push people to actually like recycle or reuse, or go through all those eco-friendly steps. Like I know in Dubai, like we don't have those eco-friendly bins which go recycle, or like the paper, I know, plastic, blah blah blah, landfill. We just have one bin, right? Like at least that's what we have. I don't have these like recyclable bins, because it's not available to me. Like it's not something I can do. Like even if I do sector it out, it still ends up in the same bin. So I think that countries need to enforce this by giving people that option to be able to actually be eco-friendly, and so we can avoid these kind of things like the Haiti earthquake and the wildfires and everything.
Marion, anything to say?
No, honestly, that's pretty much all I really wanted to say. And also, my audio kind of cut some of the parts, so I didn't hear part of your story. So
Okay.
yeah, but from what I understood, everything that I actually wanted to say was said. So
Yeah, I think like we covered a lot of it in the previous story as well, since they both are so related to each other. Like I think it's so important for people to pay attention to the recent things that are going on right now, and like get to actually know the severity of the issue, with all these instances of because of the climate crisis. So yeah. Anyone else? All good? Okay then.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Stay safe. This is the end of our podcast.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed it, and if you didn't watch any of the episodes, please do go back and watch them because
they are very informative.
Yes, and
beneficial.
You get to learn a lot of new aspects of stuff that you never even thought about, and like maybe like different perspectives and everything. It's just I think it's so helpful to be able to see news articles from different perspectives, because sometimes it blindsides you and you go, oh, this is actually right, but you know, when you listen to another person's perspective, it may change your mind and, you know, go, oh no, I actually support the other side. So
definitely,
yeah.
Also, I find it also very like educational to understand different people's point of views, different people's perspectives, and I think they shape your own in a sense, and then you decide whether you agree or not, and then that's your opinion, that's your right.
Well, you don't agree with us, but you know, it's fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, so
absolutely.
You get to listen to different people if you want to, and that's to 4 people, so you know it's better. So,
but this is the end. Yeah. So thank you to everybody for listening in.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.